Now that you're online, you can get on board the Michael Loy program on the Heads Up Radio Network. Here's Mike.
Okay, welcome to the Michael Loy Show on the Heads Up Radio Network. I'm here with Chris Taylor again, gun guru, civil rights activist, a guy that's got a lot to say about anything and everything to do with firearms and civil rights. He joined us last week. We took a couple of callers, and everything went really, really well, so we invited him back again tonight. Chris, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Okay, well, we're glad to have you back again. Chris chose the first topic of tonight's show, and the topic is going to be husband and wife carry. Why should my wife carry a gun if I carry a gun? So I'll open the floor up to Chris. Chris, why should your wife carry a gun?
Well, my belief is, it seems like a lot of gun carriers think that they're always going to have the upper hand, no matter what the adversary might do when he goes to draw his weapon, that the gun carrier is going to draw his weapon quicker and just shoot him and prevent anything from happening. I don't have that sort of confidence, and I always worry about the unknown and what might happen. And if there was some sort of confrontation with me, my wife, and some other people, I'm absolutely going to be the target. If there's two other male adversaries, they're going to be focused on me, and it may put me in a position where I'm unable to defend myself. Maybe I'm overtaken, or maybe I just can't get my weapon out fast enough. And so while they're focused on me, my wife could present her firearm and actually save both of us. In that scenario, they're not going to be expecting her. Women carry less often.
I agree 100%. Everybody that carries a gun, I guess I can't say everybody, the vast majority of people that carry guns, new CCW holders, people that have owned and carried a gun for less than 5 years, let's say, they always assume it's going to happen like it does in the movies. 2 or 3 guys walk up to you, they make their intentions clear. You know that your life's in danger, you push your wife behind you, you draw your gun, you kill everybody, and you call the cops at the end of the day, and you explain your situation, and you go home. The reality of it is that most of the time you don't even realize that you're in a gunfight until you've already been attacked in some way. So it's too late to get your gun out. Most of the time, it's going to be too late to get your gun out by the time you even realize that you're being attacked. So how many people do you know that they carry and their wives carry?
A lot fewer. I think most people think the man is going to defend the family, that if he's carrying, she doesn't need to carry. She carries for herself when he's not around. And I want to have that advantage. I'd rather have the advantage of both of us carrying, her being the unexpected.
Yeah, I think that's great. We talk a lot about tunnel vision in every one of my training courses, and I know you're intimately familiar with the idea that when you're focused on an attacker, or your attacker's focused on you, the stress that the human body goes through naturally shortens your range of vision. So that plays to our disadvantage in a gunfight, especially after a gunfight. Well, it also plays to our attacker's disadvantage as well if our wife is carrying. So if an attacker walks up and he's pumped up and he knows that he's already kicked into fight or flight mode, if he's got that tunnel vision on you, that gives your wife a perfect time to step 2 feet to the side, draw her firearm, and use lethal force if she's well trained.
Absolutely. And I want that advantage. My goal is to walk away the winner in that situation, the both of us. I don't care if I'm the one who accomplishes that or my wife. But ultimately, I want to have that edge, and I want to be the one that walks away with my life and safety.
Absolutely. So what about training for your wife? I would say, in my opinion, it's equally as important. I think that you may find yourself in a situation that most other men in America do, and that's getting your wife out there to train as much as you do. I've had hundreds of students over the years, and during our introduction period, I ask everybody, why are you here today? What's the purpose of you coming to this course? And, let's say 3 times a month, 4 times a month, I have a gal that comes in and she says, I'm here because my husband made me come. And so how do you overcome that?
It's difficult. She doesn't have the same enthusiasm that I do about it. And she does do some training, but not nearly as often as she admits that she could do more, there's no doubt.
Absolutely. So, that would be something that we can consider discussing later on in the show, that how do we motivate our wives to come out and train? It was the topic of discussion Monday night in my instructor meeting, and one of the things that we discussed was a training group called the Cornered Cat. And it's a group of all gal trainers, and they travel around the country, and they put on women's only classes. And the idea is that, hey, we're going to have a lot more fun. You're not going to have to stand out here and listen to guys puff up their chests and tell all the different stories that they do that we all know women don't care for. They can talk about things like their kids and the idea of carrying a gun with their kids, things that most guys in America, especially CCW holders, are not focused on. So the Cornered Cat is a good option. We're going to have to take a break, and we will be back in just a couple of minutes. You are listening to Michael Loy with Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network.
Avalanche Cleaning and Restoration is ready for spring. Are you? Let Avalanche get you ready for summer by making your home or business springtime clean. For your carpet, upholstery, general home cleaning, window cleaning needs, even emergency cleanups, call 208-762-2227. If you've got an emergency, 208-818-4411, or go online at avalancheclean.com. Avalanche, clean, safe, and reliable. In this world of moving commerce, your business is either moving forward or moving backwards. Make sure it moves forward. Maybe it's time we build a spot that fits your image. Blue Creative Group takes the time needed to put together a spot you want people to hear and make it a marketing tool to drive customers to your business. With the tools that experienced ad agencies and radio stations lack, Blue Creative Group will score it, voice it, and produce it. And if need be, place it on radio and TV stations throughout the Northwest. Blue Creative Group lets you make your branding personal to your target audience. Be creative, be productive, while being cost-effective. Be Blue. Blue Creative Group. Creative marketing plans for the 21st century. Call today, 208-758-0546. 208-758-0546.
Sorry, Jen, I can't make it to our coffee date today. My kids are sick again, and I have a terrible headache, and medicine just doesn't seem to help.
Seems like you guys are always sick. Have you had your house tested for mold?
Come on, Jen, you know me. I keep my house spotless. There's no mold here.
That's what I thought about our house. We had the same problems last year and called mountain mold testing. They came right out and inspected our whole house for mold.
Really? What happened?
Well, mountain mold testing took air samples, and the lab test showed that we were breathing dangerous, invisible mold. We got the mold cleaned up, and now we don't have any more wheezing, headaches, or congestion. They gave us our health back.
Mold can cause numerous health problems, including allergies, chronic headaches, asthma, and lung infections. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly are especially susceptible. Call Mountain Mold Testing at 208-660-8877. That's 208-660-8877. Online at mountainmoldtesting.com.
Support of Heads Up Radio's audio stream comes from people like you. Join the thousands that make independent radio stations like Heads Up Radio available to the public and your community. Please donate today. Now that you're online, you can get on board the Michael Loy program on the Heads Up Radio Network. Here's Mike.
Welcome back to the Michael Loy Show with Chris Taylor, and we're back to talking about guns. Before we left you on the break, we were talking about the Cornered Cat. We're also talking about how we can motivate our wives or our girlfriends or women that we know to train more often and to carry a firearm more often for personal protection and to protect the family. During the break, Chris and I were talking about a couple of things. The main motivation between why a woman decides to carry and why a man decides to carry. Chris, why do men decide to carry?
For men, I think it's a little bit more the macho. You want to be able to win the fight, be the strongest guy, protect your family and stuff like that. But for women, it's more the nurturing side. It's also to protect the family, but not in a macho way. It's more in a way of a nurturing side. So it is a little bit different approach, even though it's ultimately the same goal. There is a different approach, I think, to appeal to a woman.
You're absolutely right. Guys are egotistical by nature. You know, we want to carry a gun because we want to be the big guy on the block. We want to know that if for any reason somebody makes an attempt to threaten our lives or injure us or injure our family, that ultimately we're going to kill that person. In my experience with training gals, the idea of killing another person is somewhat foreign to them, even when they're in a concealed weapons permit course or if they're in a weekend firearms training class. They have very rarely or considered in any great depth the idea of actually killing somebody. They always consider the idea of protecting their kids or protecting themselves. They don't want to be raped. They don't want to have somebody steal their kids. So that's their mindset. If I carry the gun, I can protect myself from being raped and I can protect my kids from being stolen. For a guy, when he decides to carry a gun, his mindset is if someone makes an attempt to steal my kids or injure myself or my family, I can kill that individual. And for me, overwhelmingly, that's the consensus between guys and gals in the courses. So guys and gals have a dramatically different motivation to train, a completely different reason to carry a firearm for personal protection. Even though the end result is always the same, we want to protect ourselves and our families, there's different reasons that we're carrying, which brought us onto another topic that you were discussing that we talked about a little bit on the break as well, which is who chooses a gal's gun in most situations?
And that's another thing. We did in one of your courses we did recently where some women with law enforcement spouses came, and they all had Glock 40s, never fired a weapon before. Their first experience firing a firearm is a Glock 40. And the 40 round is a very powerful, very snappy. A lot of women don't like to shoot that round.
It's a miserable gun for me to shoot. I don't even care for the 40 caliber. I've owned them and I've sold them because the benefits of impact on your target absolutely do not outweigh the cost of the ammunition and the snappiness of the cartridge. It's not enjoyable to shoot, even for me.
Absolutely. And I carry the XD-S45, and that's a snappy gun, and no woman that I've had shoot it has liked shooting it. So I wouldn't recommend that for a woman as a carry gun, even though I choose it for myself. My wife has a Glock 9mm. That's the gun she likes. It feels comfortable in her hand. She feels comfortable shooting it. And the gun that she is willing to shoot and has confidence shooting is absolutely the gun that she should carry.
Absolutely. What about pink guns? We've seen a ton of those now. I don't see a lot of them in my classes. I think that the pink guns motivate sales. There's no doubt about that. You can ask any manufacturer how many pink guns they sell. They're going to tell you it's hundreds of thousands, which is awesome. I love to see people buying up those pink guns or any color gun. I don't care. But I never see pink guns in my training course. The reason being is that most of the time that pink gun is an impulse buy and it looks pretty, they like the idea of it, so they buy it, and then ultimately now we have people carrying firearms that aren't very well trained and may not even know how to use the gun at all. Still good that they own the gun, but I think that it's motivating people to buy for the wrong reasons. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I think a firearm without training really doesn't do you much good. It's like anything else that you do in life. Driving a car, anything you do requires practice and some training with it, I believe.
Yeah, and it seems like society has adopted that mindset for just about everything else. If you want to fly a plane, you have to go through a training course and you have to be tested at the end of it because you can be a hazard to yourself and the rest of the community. And people have predominantly not sought out the training required to competently use any item. So now we've had the big brother, the government, step in and start to mandate that. So I say shame on the American people for generations now of saying, I already know everything that there is to know about this given item. I don't need to train anymore to be competent with it. And now we've realized that at least the government's realized that because we don't train, that we're a huge detriment to ourselves. So they've started to enact laws for safer societies, which I completely disagree with, but we've done it to ourselves. We've had a few bad people ruin it for everybody.
That's true, but that's the case in anything. That example is, for instance, DUIs. We should all not be able to drive cars. So I don't agree with that one entirely because there's always going to be people doing wrong. But I absolutely actually advocate people not getting training. Anyone who might be a potential adversary to me, please do not get training.
You make a good point there. And most of the time, actually I can say 99.9% of the time, everybody that's taken my courses has always had their mind in the right place. It may be slightly off track or a little bit misguided, but through more training, they typically become advocates of us carrying and benefits to society.
And part of that is the training. It's not just handling the firearm, but the moral side of it and everything that goes with it as well. And that's part of the training, and as it should be.
Yeah, and we openly discuss in our class not only how you use a firearm and what the parts of a firearm are and what each component does. A lot of our discussion is moral and ethical. It has a moral and ethical foundation to it. And there is no right or wrong answer. If any instructor ever tells you 100% in this situation you would be legally justified in killing somebody, they're wrong. No one can say that. Nobody knows what the outcome of a given situation is going to be until the gavel falls. And there are far too many variables. So I tell my students very early on in the course, I'm not going to tell you when you can or can't use lethal force. You will know the answers for yourself by the end of the course. And to me, that's key.
Absolutely. And I learned from you in your courses, too, that even if you are justified, it doesn't mean even if you don't get criminal charges brought against you, civilly it still could be a problem.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to Michael Loy and Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network.
Are you looking for fine dining with a cozy atmosphere? Well, look no further than Bistro on Spruce in Coeur d'Alene. Proprietor Chris Mueller and Chef Todd Nelson have designed a perfect pairing of savory ingredients, fine wines, and a decadent dessert menu for your discerning palate. Bistro on Spruce features breakfast, lunch, dinner, and tapas served at the Wine Bar daily. Join us Wednesdays and Saturday nights for live music or just chill to the sounds of potato radio. Visit our website today and sign up for an event newsletter. Bistro on Spruce in Coeur d'Alene. Casual, cozy, affordable.
Sorry, Jen, I can't make it to our coffee date today. My kids are sick again, and I have a terrible headache, and medicine just doesn't seem to help.
Seems like you guys are always sick. Have you had your house tested for mold?
Come on, Jen, you know me. I keep my house spotless. There's no mold here.
That's what I thought about our house. We had the same problems last year and called mountain mold testing. They came right out and inspected our whole house for mold.
Really? What happened?
Well, mountain mold testing took air samples, and the lab test showed that we were breathing dangerous, invisible mold. We got the mold cleaned up, and now we don't have any more wheezing, headaches, or congestion. They gave us our health back.
Mold can cause numerous health problems, including allergies, chronic headaches, asthma, and lung infections. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly are especially susceptible. Call Mountain Mold Testing at 208-660-8877. That's 208-660-8877. Online at mountainmoldtesting.com.
Avalanche Cleaning and Restoration is ready for spring. Are you? Let Avalanche get you ready for summer by making your house or business springtime clean. For all your carpet upholstery and window cleaning needs, even those emergency cleanups, call Avalanche. 208-762-2227. Emergency hotline 208-818-4411 or online avalancheclean.com. Avalanche, fast, safe, and reliable.
Informative, provocative, gun talkative, the gun guru, Michael Loy, exclusively on the Heads Up Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Michael Loy Show with Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network. We've been talking about the motivation for men to carry versus the motivation for women to carry. And I think that we've really brought up some good topics here. As we left you, but right before the break, we were discussing the idea of whether or not you can be morally justified, criminally justified, civilly justified in using lethal force to protect yourself and your family, which a natural transition to that is the mental aspect of owning and using a firearm for personal protection. And of course, this is a broad topic. We could talk about this for the next 6 years and the next 50 years for all I care. We'll probably never have definitive answers where everybody feels morally, ethically, criminally, and civilly justified in their actions. But there are a couple of things that we can clear up. First and foremost, I always ask my students, what are you willing to live for? Or excuse me, what are you willing to die for? And that pretty much answers the question of what you're willing to kill for. And then from there, we start trying to open everybody's eyes to the mindset of what would be justified for them as individuals.
Absolutely. And as we talked about before, of course, it's always best to avoid a confrontation like that, because even if you do end up, as we said before, being determined to be criminally justified, that doesn't mean that civilly that the family isn't going to come after you and get you in some way, and you could be civilly held very, very responsible.
My favorite example of that is O.J. Simpson, right? Found innocent in criminal court, convicted in civil court, still had to pay Monica's surviving family members a monetary settlement at the end of it. So I think that for many people in America, that's a foreign concept. Everybody assumes that, hey, I was arrested, I had charges brought against me, I hired a good attorney, and I was found not guilty, case closed, we're done. And that's not the reality in America today. There's a lot of ambulance-chasing attorneys out there, and in many cases, individuals who have successfully defended themselves in the criminal court's eyes still go through a lengthy process in civil court, and they end up paying their surviving attacker or their surviving attacker's family members a monetary sum.
It's true. I've heard a term recently that it's expensive to be innocent in America these days, and I think a confrontation like that could put you in a situation where you'll learn a hard lesson.
Absolutely. To go along with the mental aspect of carrying and owning a firearm, oftentimes in concealed weapons permit classes, I ask my students, if you're laying down in bed in the middle of the night and it's 11 o'clock and your favorite car is outside, it's a 2014 Camaro, you just bought it, you've got a $850 a month or $850 a month car payment on it, you've been fighting with your wife for a year to get it, and you finally got this car and it's parked outside, and you hear somebody smash out the windows and he's fumbling around with it, what's your first instinct? And of course, at the beginning of my concealed weapons permit class, everybody says, grab my gun, run outside, and take care of business. And I think most of you guys listening would agree. That's the first thing that we want to do. Someone's made an attempt to take something from me, and they're not legally allowed to have it, and I work really hard to get that, and I'm going to grab my gun and I'm going to go outside and I'm going to protect that. Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
You definitely have to be careful with your emotions in any situation when you're going to involve a firearm. It's not a time when you're going to be making very rational and decisions that you may not regret later. In fact, very recently here in Spokane, Washington, a similar situation happened where his vehicle was stolen. The person was driving down the street in the vehicle. The owner of the vehicle shot down the street, actually ended up hitting the thief and killing him. He slowly veered into a house, and he was charged for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And found guilty in that case?
I don't think he's gone to trial, but they're definitely bringing charges.
Yeah, no doubt. So it's interesting to me in the beginning of a concealed weapons permit class, I'm typically training people who have owned firearms for a long time. They will boast about their experience with firearms in the beginning of the class during their introductions. Things like, I've been hunting since I was 12. I've owned a handgun since I was 15. I shoot every day. I've been in the military and I've shot every gun that's ever been made, from 50 caliber, fully automatic machine guns all the way down to 22 caliber handguns and rifles. And they've really never considered the idea of what would they do if someone's making an attempt to steal their Harley out of their garage in the middle of the night. Would they grab their gun and go get it? And so, of course, their knee-jerk reaction is, yes, I would grab my gun and I would go out there and I would stop that person from stealing my Harley Davidson. I love that bike. So that's something that we have to work through. We can do that tonight, here on tonight's show, and it's something we work through every Saturday when I teach a class. The biggest thing is that when it's a matter of perspective. A person has to consider their independent perspective in that situation. I think that most of those people that say they grab their gun and run outside and stop that person from stealing their car would also look at that situation in Spokane and say, wait a minute, the thief who stole your car was, let's just say, 50 yards, 100 yards down the street, and you drew a gun and you shot him? Wait a minute, I'm all for capital punishment. I fully believe in our legal system and very strict punishment, but you shot a guy that was 50 or 100 yards away. Who are you to be judge, jury, and executioner? But when we're faced with those circumstances or that exact situation, unless we've given it a tremendous amount of thought and consideration before we start to carry a gun for personal protection, we are highly likely or very likely to make the wrong choice.
Absolutely. And when I driving a car and someone cuts me off, maybe if I didn't have my firearm, I might let that other driver know I wasn't happy with that. But when I have my firearm, I don't, because I just don't want to start a situation that puts me in a situation that I will regret later.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point. We talked about that on last week's show, that the confidence that comes from carrying a firearm, at least for Chris and I, and in my experience, most of my students, yes, we are more confident carrying a firearm, or at least I am. I feel good when I have my firearm with me, and I know that my training will prevail in most situations that I find myself in. But with that confidence comes a certain amount of fear. I don't want to end up in that situation, so I'm much more likely to avoid confrontation when I have my gun.
And I played out those scenarios in my mind, how I approach it. And for instance, if I was had someone that was trying to fight me or something, I think I would just say, I want to leave, say nothing to instigate or further it, just say, I would like to leave now, just let me leave, I don't want any trouble. That way, if he did attack me and I had to present my firearm or use my firearm in defense, that at least if there was witnesses, they would agree that I did everything I could to avoid that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a question for you, Chris. It's actually a two-part question. The first one is, can you die in a gunfight and still win?
Yeah, we've had this discussion before, and I think I've changed my opinion on it, and my new opinion is yes.
Okay, so you can die in a gunfight and still win. Do you want to explain that a little bit better for our listeners who haven't considered this quite as much as you and I have?
Well, my belief in the past was, and part of the reason that I advocate having your spouse carry a weapon was that if someone drew a gun on me and it was already out, then if I reached for my gun, they just pull the trigger, shoot me, and there's no point. So I would have to pretend like I didn't have a gun, raise my hands, and say, hey, let's, I don't want any trouble. But you presented to me that they could just pull the trigger at any second, then it would be too late. So, and your belief was that if they did that you would immediately go for your firearm and try to shoot them. So you were going to take your life, you were going to make the decision for yourself, you weren't going to let them decide.
Yeah, and that's ultimately where I stand with this. I carry a gun because I will be the one to decide my own fate, and if my actions cost me my life, that's perfectly acceptable to me. I'm fine with that. If I die in that way, at least I know I died trying. I will not be the guy that has an intruder, kick in his front door, grab him, tie him up, and then now I have to watch my wife be sexually assaulted or my kids be killed. I would much rather die knowing that I'm going to take that person with me. And to me, that's very important. I don't even care if I die first, as long as I know that moments later, the person who chose to me as a victim of violent crime dies right along with me, and they cannot continue to do that to anyone else, but primarily not to my loved one. So I am absolutely a firm believer that I can die in a gunfight and still win, even if my family's not around. I want to be the one that decides my own fate.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So here's the second part to that question. The first is always, can you die in a gunfight and still win? And secondly, if a guy does walk up to you and he's got his gun out, how do we overcome the mental barrier of, oh my gosh, this guy has a gun pulled out, now I have to react and draw my own gun out? How do we, that's difficult, even for me in my mindset. I doubt myself. Would I really, really go for my gun knowing that I'm going to be shot? How do we gain the confidence to do that?
I think part of it comes from training. You are probably trained better than this adversary, and as I believe I would likely be statistically.
Absolutely.
Secondly, as we talked about before, is that most people do survive single gunshot wounds, especially maybe not such a well-placed shot from an untrained foe. Whereas I train a lot more, my shots are more likely to be more lethal.
Absolutely. And we talked about different types of personal protection ammunition last week or 2 weeks ago, and there's something to be said for that too. I'm counting on my adversary being a gangbanger. He's using a full metal jacket. He's got crappy ammunition, and I've taken the time to research and seek out what I believe is going to be the best bullet to end my attacker's life. So let's say he does get one single shot at me. In the United States, there's a 90% chance that I'm going to survive that gunshot wound if he's using a full metal jacket. Now, I'm using a rapidly expanding self-defense cartridge, and I know that instinctually I've trained for years to draw my gun, and I'm going to deliver a controlled pair, 2 shots to the center of the thoracic cavity of my attacker. I firmly believe that with my level of training, that's going to be a fatal shot to my attacker, unless maybe he has body armor on, but that's highly unlikely.
And the other advantage, you've already made the decision, I'm going to be shot, but I'm going to shoot. Suddenly your attacker's presented with what he thought was an unarmed victim. You're presenting your firearm. He panics, how accurate is he going to be in that situation?
You're absolutely right. We'll continue this discussion after the break. You're listening to Michael Loy and Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network.
Avalanche Cleaning and Restoration is ready for spring. Are you? Let Avalanche get you ready for summer by making your house or business springtime clean. For all your carpet, upholstery, and window cleaning needs, even those emergency cleanups, call Avalanche. 208-762-2227. Emergency hotline 208-818-4411. Or online, avalancheclean.com. Avalanche. Fast, safe, and reliable.
Are you looking for fine dining with a cozy atmosphere? Well, look no further than Bistro on Spruce in Coeur d'Alene. Proprietor Chris Mueller and Chef Todd Nelson have designed a perfect pairing of savory ingredients, fine wines, and a decadent dessert menu for your discerning palate. Bistro on Spruce features breakfast, lunch, dinner, and tapas served at the wine bar daily. Join us Wednesdays and Saturday nights for live music or just chill to the sounds of potato radio. Visit our website today and sign up for an event newsletter. Bistro on Spruce in Coeur d'Alene. Casual, cozy, affordable.
Sorry, Jen, I can't make it to our coffee date today. My kids are sick again, and I have a terrible headache, and medicine just doesn't seem to help.
Seems like you guys are always sick. Have you had your house tested for mold?
Come on, Jen, you know me. I keep my house spotless. There's no mold here.
That's what I thought about our house. We had the same problems last year and called mountain mold testing. They came right out and inspected our whole house for mold.
Really? What happened?
Well, mountain mold testing took air samples and the lab test showed that we were breathing dangerous, invisible mold. We got the mold cleaned up and now we don't have any more wheezing, headaches, or congestion. They gave us our health back.
Mold can cause numerous health problems, including allergies, chronic headaches, asthma, and lung infections. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly are especially susceptible. Call Mountain Mold Testing at 208-660-8877. That's 208-660-8877. Online at mountainmoldtesting.com.
Informative, provocative, gun talkative. The Gun Guru, Michael Loy, exclusively on the Heads Up Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Michael Loy here with Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network. Before we left you on the break, we were talking about drawing a gun and using our gun against a person who's already got a gun out. How do we overcome the mental barrier of literally our life is already on the line, but exponentially increasing the chances that we're going to be injured at best, and really increasing the chances that we're going to fall victim to now a homicide. So Chris, what are some of the ways that you've worked on in your personal life to overcome that fear? And that's exactly what it is. If somebody points a gun at me, I'm going to be afraid. There's no doubt about it. How do we overcome that fear and put our lives momentarily in greater danger in order to draw our guns and use force?
I think the way I do it, I just mentally take myself through that process. And survivors of airline disasters and so forth have talked about when they knew the plane was going down, instead of panicking, they started looking around the plane like, where's the exit door? Well, the same thing applies in this situation. I kind of played it out in my mind. What would happen? I already realized that I'm not going to be the one that pulls out my gun and puts it in someone else's face first. They're going to do that to me. They already have that advantage. So I will always have to react in that underdog situation.
Yeah, you make a good point. For me, the number one thing that gives me the confidence to know that if I'm presented with that situation, that I'm going to draw my gun and I'm going to shoot as hard and as fast as I can, is my training. Like you said, you've played through it a million times in your mind. I've shot at a million paper targets thinking about, if this is a person who's now threatened my life, I'm going to respond, and I don't care how badly they hurt me. Somebody's going to have to call my cell phone and let my body know that it's dead before I stop fighting. And with that mindset of every time I draw my gun out, I am going to end a person's life that's standing in front of me. I know I'm only going to draw my gun if I'm faced with an immediate threat to my life. So I know when that gun comes out, I have to end the person's life in front of me. And that mindset really helps give me the confidence of knowing that if somebody does do that to me, I'm going to end their life regardless of everything else.
I think it's a good time to get angry instead of scared in that situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, channel that anger and use it to, like you said, you've already made that decision. He's pointing the gun at you. You pull out your gun. You've already made the decision you were going to get shot. I don't know if the perpetrator's made that decision. And as you're presenting the firearm to him, suddenly he's faced with that scenario. So how will that affect his performance?
And we see that all the time in the gas station robbery, right? The grainy footage that we see from the security cameras. The guy runs into a gas station, pulls a gun on the clerk. The clerk, momentarily takes what the guy's doing to him and takes it with a grain of salt, starts to hand over the money, gets tired of it very quickly, draws his own gun or baseball bat. Very rarely do you see the criminal actually shoot the clerk in that situation. Typically, they may fire a shot, but the clerk doesn't get hit, or they turn around and try to run out of a door that swings in, and they get, smashed and fall back on the ground. Most of the time, criminals have not made up their mind that they're going to stand their ground, and they're going to get that $27 out of the cash register, even if it costs them their life. Well, for us, on this side of it, if we put our mind in the right place before we ever put the gun on and go out the door, we already decided that we're okay with dying as long as our attacker dies as well. The most dangerous person in the world is the guy you can't beat a guy in a fist fight or in a gunfight that doesn't care if he dies. And if we adopt that mindset that we want to live, but we don't care if we die because we can still win, that's where we're going to see criminals really start to take a second look at what they do in America. If 90% of the population carried a gun on a daily basis and 50% of those people decided that they don't care what happens to them in a gunfight, they're going to kill that person, boy, criminals would really, really, really think twice before they went out there and tried to choose somebody as a victim.
Absolutely, especially someone more well-trained. And how often have you seen where their weapons failed? Probably due to lack of training as well, where it failed to cycle, failed to fire, or they're shooting as they're facing the other direction, running away. How effective is that?
Yeah, second best video I've ever seen. There's two that come to mind. Both of them can be found on YouTube. One of them is a guy that walks into a hotel and he makes an attempt to rob a clerk. The clerk hands over the money, and when the guy fumbles around with the robber fumbles around with his gun and shoots himself through his chin and into his brain, kills himself right there on the spot. Absolutely an awesome video. Complete lack of training. The second video that comes to mind is the robber that robs a gas station, gets the money from the clerk and goes to shove his handgun back inside the front of his pants, keeps his finger on the trigger, number one safety rule none of us should be breaking, and shoots himself in the testicles.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll never see that coming out of a guy that spent 4 or 5 days a year on the range training with qualified instructors.
Absolutely not. In your course, every time we're reholstering our weapons, you're calling out, watch your trigger, watch your finger, all those things.
Yeah, finger straight. And, we work on the student-coach method, so there's one-on-one instructor-student ratios in our classes because that instinct to keep your finger on the trigger when you go back into the holster, in this situation, back into your pants, is huge. So we have to make sure that we dedicate a lot of time and energy toward training.
Absolutely. I'll take my chances against someone like that any day.
Yeah, I'd feel good if I ever do have to use lethal force in a situation, which we all know none of us want to. I hope it's against somebody like that.
It's like I said earlier, I absolutely advocate my adversaries to be untrained.
Yeah, and I think in most situations that's exactly what we would find.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to Michael Loy and Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network.
Avalanche Cleaning and Restoration is ready for spring. Are you? Let Avalanche get you ready for summer by making your home or business springtime clean. For your carpet, upholstery, general home cleaning, window cleaning needs, even emergency cleanups, call 208-762-2227. If you've got an emergency, 208-818-4411 or go online at avalancheclean.com. Avalanche, clean, safe, and reliable.
Are you looking for fine dining with a cozy atmosphere? Well, look no further than Bistro on Spruce in Coeur d'Alene. Proprietor Chris Mueller and Chef Todd Nelson have designed a perfect pairing of savory ingredients, fine wines, and a decadent dessert menu for your discerning palate. Bistro on Spruce features breakfast, lunch, dinner, and tapas served at the Wine Bar daily. Join us Wednesdays and Saturday nights for live music or just chill to the sounds of potato radio. Visit our website today and sign up for an event newsletter. Bistro on Spruce in Coeur d'Alene. Casual, cozy, affordable.
Sorry, Jen, I can't make it to our coffee date today. My kids are sick again, and I have a terrible headache, and medicine just doesn't seem to help.
Seems like you guys are always sick. Have you had your house tested for mold?
Come on, Jen, you know me. I keep my house spotless. There's no mold here.
That's what I thought about our house. We had the same problems last year and called mountain mold testing. They came right out and inspected our whole house for mold.
Really? What happened?
Well, mountain mold testing took air samples, and the lab test showed that we were breathing dangerous, invisible mold. We got the mold cleaned up, and now we don't have any more wheezing, headaches, or congestion. They gave us our health back.
Mold can cause numerous health problems, including allergies, chronic headaches, asthma, and lung infections. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly are especially susceptible. Call Mountain Mold Testing at 208-660-8877. That's 208-660-8877. Online at mountainmoldtesting.com.
Now that you're online, you can get on board the Michael Lloyd program on the Heads Up Radio Network. Here's Mike.
Welcome back to Michael Lloyd here with Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network. Talking guns, talking mindset. We're discussing the idea of surviving an attack no matter what. And how do we get there? Is it mental training? Is it physical training? Is it a combination of conditioning both your mind and your body to surviving a gunfight? And of course, we all know that it is a combination of your mind and your body. If I go a week without doing any dry practice, or God forbid I go 2 weeks without doing any dry practice, I put that gun back on. I question how fast I'm going to be able to make a reload when I need to. On the break, Chris and I were discussing two things. Part of why our confidence level is as high as it is, that we would pull a gun and we would put ourselves in greater danger momentarily. Part of it is that I've chosen a gun that I firmly believe in. And this is not a sales pitch for Springfield. It just happens to be the gun that works well for me. It happens to be a Springfield XDM and 9mm. You guys have heard me talking about it for weeks now. It's not because Springfield makes the best gun in the world. If they did, I'd put all my money into their stock, and I tell everybody that they make the best gun. They make the best gun for me. And I am very biased when it comes to it. I used to be a Glock shooter. I've tried many other handguns before. For whatever reason, whether it's the number of hours or days or weeks I've spent with that gun in my hand, I feel very confident with it. So I know when that gun comes out of my holster, I know exactly how it's going to function. I count on my adversary, most law enforcement officers, most military personnel, most other civilian trainers haven't had their gun in their hand as much as I have. And I count on that. I count on knowing that that gun is going to react exactly the same way every time I pull it out. And then I also count on the fact that if it doesn't react in that manner, I know how to get it back into shape as fast as possible. The adage in the gun training industry is if your gun doesn't work, you beat the shit out of it until it does. So the harder and the faster you work a gun, the better it's going to perform for you. Chris mentioned there's another reason why he has the confidence that we both believe it takes in order to survive falling victim to a violent crime. Chris, what is that?
And it's all, like you said, it's the equipment that I've chosen. I personally believe in the 45 round, 45 hollow point. I feel it's superior. I feel most people are going to have less of a caliber. And whether it's true or not, there's definitely the debate over which ammo is the best in situations and whatnot. But for me, mentally, I feel like I have the edge. Much like as you described with your choice in a firearm, you believe you have the edge. Therefore, that is the best choice for you, and my firearm is the best choice for me.
You're absolutely right, and I agree with you. Many people that are in the upper end of age, in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, they believe that a .22 caliber handgun is the best handgun for them. It may be the only thing that they can handle. Now, I think most people would agree that .22 caliber is slightly subpar for personal protection or for self-defense. But if it's all that you can handle and you believe that that gun is going to save your life, and more importantly, that gun is going to end someone else's life to save your own, then that's the gun that you want to have.
Absolutely. And definitely that mental aspect. I mean, that's just that being confronted with someone and not having the confidence. If you feel like you're going to lose or you feel like they have the advantage, it could very well create a situation where they do win that confrontation. So I'm going to go in with the equipment I feel is the best, feel strong, feel like I have the advantage. Even if they hit me with their rounds, I'm going to hit them with mine. They're going to be well placed. They're 45 hollow points, and I'm going to stop them before they can do further harm to me.
I've heard you just say that many times in regards to rifles as well. You've chosen a 30 caliber rifle for personal protection, training, sporting activities, and I know that you use your rifles as well as your handguns in all of those aspects. And that's important, but you've chosen 30 caliber. Last week we discussed the military choosing 223 or 5.56, some advantages and disadvantages to that. And clearly you're as well educated as anybody on the pros and cons to larger versus smaller calibers in rifles, and yet you've gone with a 30 caliber rifle.
I feel like if I have an adversary, like for instance in some sort of civil unrest situation or anything like the like, if someone has a 5.56 rifle and they're shooting at me, and I have my 308 rifle, a military-style combat rifle, and I'm returning fire, the argument can be made if there is in reality is an advantage. But for me, the mental advantage, I'm shooting at you with a superior round, a heavier round, heavier penetrating power. If it does hit you, in my opinion, it's more devastating. I feel like I have the advantage. It's me getting hit is less devastating than you getting hit. Therefore, me hitting you, I'm not as worried about getting hit myself.
Yeah, and I can absolutely understand that logic. And I found for me, and each one of you out there will find the same thing in your life. I found for me that I like the idea, and I have a tremendous amount of confidence carrying a 9mm, let's say, because I can carry a lot of ammunition with me. It's not because I'm not an accurate shooter. It's because I feel like getting a lot of rounds downrange and on target is very important to me, and that gives me a lot of strength in my mental, in the mental aspect of carrying. When I draw my gun out of a holster and I'm doing a multiple attacker drill, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 attackers, I know that when I draw that gun out, I'm delivering 2 or 3 shots to every one of those targets in fractions of a second, tenths of a second. And I know that when I run out of my 20 rounds of ammunition, I can make a reload again in 2.1, 2.2 seconds. So I can literally fire 20 cartridges down, or 20 bullets down range, reload with a fresh 19 cartridges, and I can do all of that in 3-4 seconds. So I feel like getting a lot of lead down range is extraordinarily devastating. I don't know how many people that are going to stand their ground with 20 cartridges going down range, and that's the key. I just said it. 20 cartridges flying, or 20 bullets flying at you in the heat of the moment. How many people are going to stand their ground and deliver or return accurate fire in that situation?
Not many. And you never know the situation you're going to be in. You never know. You could be in a situation where you're using cover. Most of your fire isn't hitting anyone. You may need 20, 40 rounds in that situation just for even a single adversary.
Yeah, that's true. So I would prefer, and I'm not saying which one's right or wrong. I think both perspectives, 45, 30 caliber, 5.56, 9mm, both perspectives hold value. There's no doubt. But for me, I want to overcome my adversary by volume, and not just by volume, but by very well-placed volume in a very timely manner.
And that's the mental aspect of it, is your adversary's mental aspect. And if I have the confidence, if I feel like my rounds are more devastating, or as you said, you have more firepower, then the confidence you have that you're strongly coming towards them may cause them to have doubt, and therefore put them at the disadvantage. They're the ones who'll be shooting inaccurately out of fear while you're putting your rounds on target.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Michael Loy with Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network.
Looking for something different to do tonight? Thinking of a restaurant that you haven't been to for a while, or a place to take the kids out for a fun night? Ever find yourself in this situation? This is a question that prompted publisher Jeanette Dunn to create Idaho Cuisine and Spokane Sizzle dining and entertainment guides. And it just keeps getting better with their pocket guide, online editions, and now online local restaurant finder at sizzlingcuisine.com. Also find local wineries, breweries, distilleries, great recipes from local chefs, hot spots and cool happenings, and chances to vote for your favorites. Be in the know about local happenings when you sign up for the Sizzling Cuisine e-News, delivered to your desktop weekly, and be eligible to win a free dinner for two. You've always enjoyed reading the magazines. Now it's easy to flip through them online too. Makes it easy to find restaurants that offer great menus prepared by experienced staff who really care to serve you the best in local cuisine. Spokane Sizzle and Idaho Cuisine are online at sizzleincuisine.com. We do the footwork to make it easy for you to find just what you're looking for.
Sorry, Jen, I can't make it to our coffee date today. My kids are sick again, and I have a terrible headache, and medicine just doesn't seem to help.
Seems like you guys are always sick. Have you had your house tested for mold?
Come on, Jen, you know me. I keep my house spotless. There's no mold here.
That's what I thought about our house. We had the same problems last year and called mountain mold testing. They came right out and inspected our whole house for mold.
Really? What happened?
Well, mountain mold testing took air samples, and the lab test showed that we were breathing dangerous, invisible mold. We got the mold cleaned up, and now we don't have any more wheezing, headaches, or congestion. They gave us our health back.
Mold can cause numerous health problems, including allergies, chronic headaches, asthma, and lung infections. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly are especially susceptible. Call Mountain Mold Testing at 208-660-8877. That's 208-660-8877. Online at mountainmoldtesting.com.
Avalanche Cleaning and Restoration is ready for spring. Are you? Let Avalanche get you ready for summer by making your house or business springtime clean. For all your carpet, upholstery, and window cleaning needs, even those emergency cleanups, call Avalanche. 208-762-2227. Emergency hotline 208-818-4411. Or online, avalancheclean.com. Avalanche. Fast, safe, and reliable.
Now that you're online, you can get on board the Michael Lloyd program on the Heads Up Radio Network. Here's Mike.
Welcome back. You're listening to Michael Lloyd. Here with me tonight, I have Chris Taylor and the Heads Up Radio Network. We have an interesting text question, one that I'm excited about. Chris and I are both really excited about it. So the text question is, in a zombie apocalypse, and by no means are we going to get off on zombies, this is an interesting question that can be thought-provoking from many different perspectives. In a zombie apocalypse, you have 15 seconds to decide which firearm is right for you. You have an unlimited arsenal in front of you, but only 15 seconds to decide. Chris, what's your firearm of choice?
Well, in this scenario, I would leave my .308 rifle at home and I'd grab my 5.56, I think. Higher capacity magazines, I could carry more ammo, it's lighter. I think the 5.56 round would be devastating to the zombies' brains. So that's definitely my weapon of choice.
5.56, okay, and you're going to go with the rifle.
Yeah, I think that I would want to have the range. I'd like to take them out at distance, preferably. I still think it's very effective at close range. I'm not so worried about a zombie overpowering me. They're not very strong or intelligent, so they're pretty easy. So I think picking them off at distance with my 5.56 would be the choice.
Yeah, okay. So here's something to consider. Your mindset, you're comfortable and you're confident with the 30 caliber rifle. That's what gives you the confidence to survive a gunfight. In a zombie apocalypse, we might have more than just zombies coming after us. We could have, let's say, disgruntled law enforcement officers wearing body armor. Now, do you still want your 5.56? I think your go-to gun is low recoil, high magazine capacity. You can carry a lot of ammunition because there's going to be a lot of zombies. But is it going to give you that mental edge that you need if you come across a non-zombie wearing body armor, for instance? Maybe like me, because I'm planning on surviving just as long as you.
Absolutely. Well, you could be, your adversary could be another human, but they want to take your food from you, or et cetera. They probably wouldn't have anything more than a 5.56. I would feel at least equal in that situation, and I still think the advantage of higher magazine capacity, because you're dealing with, you could have a high number of zombies coming at you at any given time in one shot. So I think the magazine capacity and also the capacity to be able to carry more rounds.
Okay, the situation highlights what we've been talking about for 2 weeks now. So for me, go-to gun, 15 seconds to decide. I reach over, I grab my Springfield XDM off my bed, and I'm out the door, gun on my belt, and a duffel bag full of loaded magazines. So I'm out the door, and I only need less than 1 second to make that decision. Why do I go to a Springfield XDM in 9mm?
Because you're a pistol master is the main reason.
That's right, because I shoot handguns more than anybody I know. It's the gun I'm the most comfortable with. You give me an AR in this situation, I'd probably be chasing Chris around as a zombie. But you give me that Springfield XDM and 9mm, the gun that I intimately know and love, and about 75 loaded magazines, I'm going to make it a long time like that. Might be a little bit closer than Chris, or I might have to be closer to my attackers than Chris, but I'm going to survive for a long time. So leads us to our next question. Got to be gun related. You had 15 seconds to decide which gun or which firearm you're going to grab. What's the next single most important thing that you're going to grab running out of your house in this given zombie or apocalyptic situation?
I guess food would be the next thing, food and water.
Okay, food and water. So lots of light ammunition, which is always good. Leaves you a lot of room and extra space to be able to carry food. I'm going for body armor.
Yeah, good point. Not so important against the zombies, but you'd have to assume there's other human survivors, and people start getting desperate for food in that situations. And I think that definitely you would find yourself at odds with other humans, non-zombies.
Yeah, okay. So go-to for you. Number one is 5.56 rifle. Number two's food. I've clearly made my choice. It takes me less than a second. Springfield XDM, because that's what I train the most with. Body armor, because I don't like being shot in the back. Third choice, Chris?
I think at that point I would have to then go to armor myself.
You're going to body armor?
But I think I'd go to heavier rifle, military-grade armor.
Okay, so once I have my handgun and my body armor, since you've left your wife behind for food and body armor, I'm going for your wife. She's going to be my third choice.
Oh, I guess I didn't think this through very well.
Yeah, she might be listening.
I was going to say my next choice would be you, because it'd be a great partnership with a pistol versus 5.56, but...
Then you realize you're going to have to live with your wife through this zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. It's a good thing my 5.56 round will penetrate your police grade vest, while my military grades will easily deflect your pistol rounds.
And you make an excellent point. We've made dramatically different choices in body armor. There's no doubt about that. I've chosen to go with very light duty body armor for two reasons. One, body armor is hot. It's heavy. I have to wear it on the range, and actually I prefer to wear it on the range. So I wear mine quite often. And so light, thin body armor is awesome for me. But of course, with light, thin body armor comes huge drawbacks. Chris's 5.56, his 30 caliber rifle, is going to penetrate that body armor, and it's not going to do me any good at all. So there's another trade-off. We talk about heavy ammunition versus light ammunition, heavy body armor versus light body armor.
Everything is a trade when you make these choices.
Yeah, absolutely. So for body armor for you, you've selected a very heavy body armor. Explain that to choice.
Well, I would only foresee myself using the body armor in like a situation where
zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, something like that. Society's melted down, and most people are going to go to a lot of people have a military style semi-automatic rifles. 5.56 rifles, AR-15s are the most popular, and that's what I assume I'll be going against. And so my armor is rated for that type of ammunition.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's a very, very logical decision. If I hit the lottery tomorrow, I'm going to buy the same body armor that you do.
Absolutely, sounds like a good plan.
So you mentioned people carrying and owning AR-15s, right? I mean, after the last gun rush, I think just about everybody who's ever even considered buying a black gun ran out and bought a black gun. So do you have any idea how many people that was? Have you read any numbers on that?
I haven't, but it was a lot of people. I think, as you said, whoever didn't have one was thinking about getting one. I think pretty much jumped the gun at that point. So pretty much everyone that wants one has one.
safe to assume there may be tens of thousands, possibly even hundreds of thousands of new AR or similar style rifles in America?
I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay. So I think that next week, that's what we're going to be discussing. We'll talk about how many people have gone out and chosen to buy AR-15s, semi-automatic rifles modeled after or in some cases identical to what the United States military and other militaries are using to defend our country and their own. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, we'll be conservative and say tens of thousands of new people have purchased these firearms. How many of those new AR-15 owners out there, how many of them have gone out and sought training after this? They've bought the gun, they've stockpiled the ammunition, they bought the Picatinny-mounted gas-powered blender, flashlight, radio adapter, and everything else that they can strap on the gun. Highest grade sights available, $1,000 optics, but have yet to take a training course.
I think the majority of them are fairly confident that they can defeat any adversary without any training whatsoever.
I think so, and I think that that's a huge false confidence, and I think that in this zombie apocalyptic situation, we and they will very quickly realize that they bought a very loud club.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much for listening to Michael Loy with Chris Taylor on the Heads Up Radio Network. We'll see you again next week on Wednesday night.